Have you been going around the event and checking out different things?
I definitely have. And actually, I wanted to say that, so, we were lucky, we kind of survived. We got through COVID. But our business is online, right? So people were pushed online. I'm sure we can talk about that later. What you've achieved, though, you've taken a business that is inherently face-to-face offline, and you've managed to put together an amazing event. So congrats before we go into
Yeah, for 100 years. I think more than 100 years, this business has been offline, conference and exhibition. Everyone tried to put in some online elements, the event app, different things, but this is all online now. It's amazing.
Yeah, and like I said to you the other day, I think there's an advantage, right? Because today I've been working, but I've had Step Conference on one screen and Yallacompare on the other, and I've been able to dip in and out, and I've liked that. And I think I always really struggle with the idea of trying to leave the office to get to conferences, and I always love it when I'm there, but it's really hard to leave, right? So I think what I was saying to you the other day, because more and more content has gone online, more and more people are using podcasts and other mediums, I've been able to listen to more people that I want to listen to and learn more. And I think there's something in it, you can't beat the lawn at Step Conference and chilling and meeting people, but,
yeah, definitely. Yeah, but I think, like you were saying, I think more people will be connected now, and more people will listen and watch and hear different things. Because generally, even myself, I attend less throughout the year, and this is my core business because it needs a lot of time to travel, especially if you're going to another country. Then you have to go there and dedicate a whole few days or a whole week. Well, now it's different. I can still go to the same offline events when they come back that I go to, but I can attend tens of other online events that happen and anywhere in the world. And we've given access to, not just us, but any online event. You've given access to a lot of people in different markets, and we've had a lot of these kind of people within our community that can't afford to, if you're in Egypt or even Lebanon now with the current situation, you can't afford to spend this amount of money on a flight, on a hotel, the ticket, everything, and let alone dedicating a whole week to go and attend the conference. But now at a fraction of the cost, you can do all that, and you can network, and you can watch. Yeah.
I love it.
So how's it been for you guys?
So it's been good. I was thinking back over, trying to recall the kind of early days of COVID, right? And certainly lockdown. And I was thinking to myself, so, it was easily one of the hardest things we've had to do is navigate the first couple of weeks, right? Where there's so much uncertainty. Will we have to close the office? Or we will. Okay. We've got nearly 100 people, and there's call center. There's a lot to kind of keep moving, right? So I was thinking about my memory of that, specific kind of 2-3 week period. And I was thinking to myself that it was the hardest thing I've ever done, but in a weird, sadistic way, I loved it at the same time because I've been doing this since 2011, and I've never had to deal with those challenges, right? Because we've always been allowed to come to the office. I've always been able to go and see people and motivate them, right? So
we never thought about it. Yeah, we're going to end up dealing with these challenges.
Exactly. So in a really twisted way, I really enjoyed dealing with the challenges and having something new to deal with. I'm not asking for it again. I don't want it again. But it was good, and we were lucky. So, I know a lot of businesses had it hard. For us, people still needed insurance, mandatory stuff, and they had to buy it online, and there was no option.
Did you see the health insurance climb up? People seeking health insurance just because they're afraid.
We saw two different things with health insurance actually. So car spiked triple for our business. It was amazing. And that was over a kind of 3-month period. It was crazy. And we were struggling to keep up with demand, actually, and process all those additional policies. On health insurance, we saw two very specific threads. On one hand, the people who would normally only buy a policy just to renew their visa, right? So it's ticking a box, get the bare minimum. That fell away, right? Because you couldn't actually get a visa anymore, right? There was a period where you just couldn't renew. So those people dropped away. But we definitely saw an uptick of people wanting a greater level of coverage. Whilst travel insurance obviously stopped for a few months, now what we're seeing is a big demand, specifically around
Travel insurance, because they're worried if like they go
Yeah.
somewhere else and something happened.
Yeah, COVID cover essential. So yeah, two different threads. Whilst there was a big demand for car, what we noticed actually is a lot of insurers, they felt this demand and they wanted to beat each other, and they were offering lower and lower prices. So actually policy prices came down. So, you're selling more, but the GMV doesn't necessarily climb with it. But it's been good. Like, we're really lucky. We were really fortunate that just before lockdown, I think it was just before lockdown, we closed a round of funding. And I got to tell you, there's no better time.
You got lucky.
Yeah.
Well, we got lucky as well with our event, because we did our event a week before COVID started. Like a week before. I mean, before, like, it had started in China and there was talks about it and so on. But I remember we did the event and then I traveled the week after. And when I was away, that's when the whole thing just like exploded. So if we were 1 week delayed, we would have had, and doing it, having to cancel so close with a physical event, it's, so we were lucky as well. But I'm glad you guys also managed to get that funding right in before. How many scenarios did you have to do when COVID hit?
I gotta tell you, like, we had some really tense meetings, our management team, it's because on one hand, we might land this money and it would be amazing, and it'll really keep us moving. On the other, if we don't land it, we're going into a period of uncertainty, probably going to be a hit on revenue in some parts of the business. At that point, we didn't know, right, what was going to happen. And, we had some really tense meetings where how do we save costs? And you know what that means. It typically means, and lots of the big startups in the UAE faced it, it can mean reducing staff numbers. And that's never pleasant, right? That's never a pleasant conversation.
Yeah, fire people. Yeah.
It's not even unpleasant. It's just disgusting having to think about letting people go. And of course, sometimes you have to do these things, and it was hard. It wasn't pleasant, and even, we took a hit with one division specifically. So car insurance in general spiked for us, but our banking side of the business really took a hit. And I was having to explain to the management team that yes, we've just landed this money, but we still have to be uber cautious, right? We have to be really careful because we're taking a big hit here. Gross margin, a big contributor of gross margin to us is now starting to slip away. So don't get too excited. Don't think we can start spending again. We have to control it. We have to use it like it didn't exist almost. So that was a hard balance and act as well. But we survived and we're here now. And I got to apologize to everyone who's watching this, but I'm just realizing the light is horrendous in this room. I look very. This isn't sunburn. This is lighting. I promise.
You look good. You look good.
Cheers, mate.
I'm sitting here in a very dark room with like two lights, but cool. It's a studio in out of like Studio City, Production City.
I love it.
Dubai, yeah.
Looks good.
So, yeah, I mean, can you take me back a little bit when you first started? I mean, I think you basically. Opposed to like, the usual known that you should, focus on your startup full time. You should not be doing two things at the same time. But you actually managed to do it and you were pretty successful at it. So you had a job and then you started Yallacompare while keeping your job, your kind of like safety net.
Yeah.
You probably worked your ass off, but you're here.
Yeah.
So how do you do that?
So, when I first moved to Dubai, I joined Property Finder. So at the time, Property Finder, for people who haven't been here that long, they don't realize maybe what it was like in 2011. It was dark ages in terms of digital in Dubai, right? So I remember how very little we were spending at Property Finder. And, I was the first person they'd hired in any kind of digital marketing capacity, right? So I was there to set up a team and start to build up these expertise, SEO, paid search, etc., etc. And like every entrepreneur, the business that I ended up creating was born out of necessity and just everything I could see around me. So I was new to Dubai and I was looking for a bank account. Who would I bank with and why? And I was thinking about, do I want to get car finance and where would I get that? And frankly, in those days, the banks didn't have websites. And right? Or if they did, they had a one-page website and no product information. It was just really dark ages, right? So what I was particularly good at back in those days, those skills have slipped away now, but I was particularly good at, I guess, hacking Google, right? So I could build any website. I couldn't physically build it myself, but I could take any website and I could put it top in Google. Any subject matter.
Are you a developer originally? You're
No. So I can play around with little bits of code, but I'm not a developer. That's not my game. But what I knew how to do was the very simple, back in those days, it was very simple. The very simple methods of getting any website for any term top of Google, right? So in the old days, you would search for any bank, any product. You're going to find what was then Compare for me, what is now Yallacompare. So whilst working at Property Finder, I mean, probably 6 or 8 weeks into my Property Finder history or journey, I started this business and it was going on in the background. And I stayed at Property Finder for 3 years whilst building Yallacompare. And actually it was at Property Finder that I met my co-founder.
How many years?
3.
3? Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's a long time.
So listen, right? There's those days, right, where like literally my wife would go on holiday. I'm like, I can't. I got to use this time to build the site. The weekends, dinners, brunches, whatever it is, I can't do it. I'm building, right? So really hard work. Sama and I, my co-founder and I, we both had new babies as well. So, jobs, new baby, new business. It was tough, man. And I've said before, but in those days, there was times where you were so stressed that, there's almost no chance the revenue's ever coming. It's so far away. If someone had given me a hug, I would have just broke down, I think. And I mean that as well, right? So, it's like, it's graft, man. Like when I think about hustling, I really think like what we did was we really hustled. And, we talked about, the other day we talked about, well, what would you prefer, to raise money or to do the way we did it? Look, in these days, you got to remember 2011, I'm not even sure if Wanda existed in 2011. I think they started a couple of years later. So
yeah, they had just started. Yeah, it was very early on. Yeah, there was nothing around.
There's no step conference. There's no Wanda. There's no ecosystem. I mean, it was nuts actually. It was really early days. So it was really tough. So it's not like we could just click our fingers, meet 100 guys that might seed us or invest in us. It didn't exist. So. If I had to do it again, I'd rather be funded from day one, definitely. I think the advantages of what we did is it meant that, by the time we did meet investors, we were quite far down in our journey. We had revenue, we had proven ourselves over a number of years. We had clients and, these clients are big banks regionally. So, pros and cons. I wouldn't choose this path if I had to do it again, no?
Did you feel that you spent too long? Like 3 years is a long time. Did you ever feel that, during those 3 years that, okay, this thing is not going to work. I'm just going to stick it in my job, try something else, maybe?
Definitely. Me and Sama, we clashed a couple of times. It's like desperate, right? You just like, I can't, because basically what I would do is I would wake up and I would work. So I'd wake up around 6 and I'd work for 2 hours on the startup and then go to work to Property Finder. Well, in that time, I'm obviously trying to spend time with my newborn daughter as well. So she's on my lap. And I remember very vividly splitting my screen, right? So I had YouTube on one side with like, I don't know, some cartoon, maybe Peppa Pig, whatever was available in those days. On the left and on the right is me trying to do my work. And, but so, it definitely, it adds flavor to the journey for sure. But again, maybe not to be repeated.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That's great. And so after that, you went on. So the 30 is when you left. Was that when you fundraised, or was that before?
Yeah. So we had an offer of angel funding, and it was at that point that I was going to quit Property Finder. Up until that point, the kind of revenue was kind of lumpy, right? So it could support. By this point, Sama was I had already gone full time, so it could support him. But it wasn't quite going to be enough. It was just enough for me to have a little bit of extra money every now and again, right? So It wasn't until we raised the money in 2014, it was an angel round, a total of $500,000. It wasn't until that point that I went full-time.
And before that, you were spending on the company as well? Like you guys had costs running for 3 years?
Yeah, so, well, for the most part, it funded itself. In the last 12 months, it was almost, it was self-funded. For the first year or two, we had some costs, but very little, right? So, when we built the first version of the site, it was WordPress. I used, a freelance developer. It probably cost me, I don't know, $1,000. And I used some freelance content writers, so really like hacking it, as bootstrapped as you could ever be, but we probably didn't spend more than, I don't know, maybe $10,000. We probably didn't spend more than that in total getting launched.
That's good, yeah. That's the advantage of bootstrapping, I think, in one way or the other. It makes you from day one be very frugal and focused on your costs versus, you're starting up, you get, a chunk of money and then you just have to feel like how you're going to spend it, But when it's your own money at the beginning, it's like, it's you kind of start with this mentality of being very focused on being cost efficient.
Yeah, and Sam to this day, holds that mentality. He's much better than I am. He's like, $1,000, what? Like he really focuses on those $1,000 spends, which is good, which is really good. That's positive because, like I started off by saying, we just raised money. It's COVID. That doesn't mean you go gangbusters, bridges on Shakeside Road and radio. That doesn't mean you do that. We raised the money and we immediately went into an efficiency drive. How can we continue? How can we make sure this money lasts us as long as possible? Because as you look to the next year or two, I don't know, like how easy is it going to be to come by an investment? Not forgetting that our stage of startup, it's really hard to raise anyway, right? That awkward teenager kind of age. There isn't a great deal of money at this stage anyway. Add to that then the possibility of, economic downturn globally. So, for us, it's, the drive for sustainability has never been greater, despite having, millions in the bank. So that's nice.
Yeah, so it's difficult, like when you fundraise, to be so focused on. I feel like investors and founders should make that a thing, that when you fundraise, first look at how you can cut cost, then look at how you can spend the money.
Yeah.
Because you kind of like have to go through that. Tell me about the time when you changed your name. I think it's a lot of, startups, startup founders go through that either early on and later. You went through it at a pretty later stage. You were called compareitforme, and you were pretty established, and then you had to change your name. That must be scary, like having to, people already used to your name and they know you, and then, let alone the whole SEO and your website and all of that stuff. What happened? Tell us.
Yeah, so look, I think we changed in maybe 2016. I think it was the rebrand. So we were 2 years into having already received funding. So 2 years of spending millions of dollars, right? Literally millions on growing the brand. Again, Shakeside Road, all the good stuff. But, the name, we felt like, so we had regional aspirations. We knew we were going to want to start launching new markets, and the name wasn't going to work, right? In markets where English is the kind of business language, okay, it might work. But, in somewhere like Saudi and Egypt, we just felt like compareitforme wasn't going to work. Add to that, like we would hear customers would say it to us, like compare me for it or compare IT. It wasn't sticking, right? And there was one day I remember hearing a call in the call center of a new agent that had just joined, and he said it wrong. And I just thought, forget this, man. This is ridiculous. If our own team can't say it, we're done, right? So probably in 2015, we knew that we were going to change the name at some point. But it literally took 12 months of us settling and feeling comfortable. And we didn't just click our fingers, right? We spoke to the board, we spoke to experts, we spoke to marketing people, we spoke to a lot of dialogue internally. The tipping point though was we did an external survey. So we surveyed the market, not our customers, people who might know us, but maybe not know us, right? We didn't know. It was third-party external. And it was a general insurance online kind of survey. So how do you buy your insurance? Have you heard of these companies, et cetera, et cetera? the companies that we mentioned, right? So we mentioned Compare It For Me, a few competitors, a couple of insurance companies, and we threw in there Yallacompare, right? Which didn't exist. It was a domain name that I owned. It did not exist as a business, had never traded. The report was crazy. Thousands of people took the survey, and what it told us was Compare It For Me got the best brand recall. So thank goodness something was working, because people were recognizing us as a brand and recalled us more than any other brand. Good news. The second best recall, or most recalled, was Yallacompare, which and it was
didn't
really
exist. It didn't exist at the time. Yeah.
It really didn't exist. And we're like, this is crazy, but it does speak to people, right? For one, Yallacompare means go compare. To anyone who speaks Arabic and they know what Yalla means, it's something they say 10,000 times a day. I'm a parent, and you need to say Yalla sometimes because get your coat, etc., etc. Even I say that now. So, and if you're, English speaking or English first language, then one of the first words you learn when you get to Dubai, apart from all those swear words, is Yalla, right? So we knew it was going to speak to people, but and the funny thing is, it's the same number of characters as Compare It For Me. But it doesn't sound the same. It's so much cleaner, Yallacompare, right? So that was the reason. In terms of the technical switch, it wasn't as hard as you might think, right? I mean, for one, if anyone searched for the brand Compare It For Me, which they continued to do for a good 2 years, it's only just really died off. They would still find us, right? We were still going to be the top in Google for Compare It For Me, and we were still going to bid on that term just to make sure that you found us, right? So, and we kept the colors the same as well. We're only now thinking about the color change, but we wanted to make sure that the transition, if not by name, was at least by color and font, and these kind of things continued. So we lost a little bit of ground SEO, but that doesn't last very long, so that was fine. We had one really scary moment, right before we were about to make the switch, technically make the switch, and then make the announcement. Our lawyer flagged that someone had a similar name. Oh, we're like, oh my God, like what precautions do we take? It turned out, we were good, right? We had the trademark, everything was covered. And then the end decision was, it's fine, we go live, and it's been fine. But yeah, these kind of things, you can't, I think, in the early days, I wouldn't have, we wouldn't use a lawyer, right? Why would you, right? I don't need a lawyer. We'll just get forgiveness rather than permission. It's that kind of attitude. And I think the further in you get, the more you kind of realize that you want that. You want the safety net, if nothing else. You want to know.
That. Yeah. There was this ad that you did. Was it like with like a sheep or a camel or something that's like really memorable? What was it?
A screaming goat.
A goat. Yeah, I'm gonna try to look it up actually.
Please. But people loved and hated that ad. And people were on Twitter like swearing, like, "Oh my God, this ad!" And
is it this one? I want to play it.
Scroll up. If you go to our account, click on Yallacompare, and then scroll down. It could be that one. Could be that one.
I think maybe these are all your videos.
Yeah. So look, this ad.
Try this one. Can you hear it? I think it's here.
Just about hear it. Same vibe. Yeah. So we did a bunch of that. Basically, animals.
That's like so memorable. I remember it very well. It was coming up for all the video. But how did you come up with this ad? Who came up with this idea?
So
now it's playing. Gonna stop it.
That's it. Yeah, there you go. And that got 3 million views, right? That's just that one video got 3 million, and I think they all did pretty well actually. And right. So if you want to talk about bootstrapping, this is at a point. We made those videos when we had money in the bank. I'm the voiceover, me entirely. The video editing was done in-house. Took half an hour. Me and the video guy.
You were the voiceover for this one, or this was
all of them? I'm the guy singing, the guy speaking. That's me. Gotta have multiple.
The one saying Yallacompare as well. That's you.
Oh, no, compare.
That's there you go.
Yeah. So,
nice.
when I tell people, that in the early days of running a startup, I did everything from design a banner to, I literally did everything, sometimes even the voiceovers, right? So, so look, but that video cost zero, literally zero. It might have cost $50 to buy the rights to the song or the something, right? But that was it, man. And it really struck a chord. What I liked about it was people hated it and they liked it. And hating it, I've got something on you. And people were like, I remember there was a point where I think it was Taliban or someone else, and people were like, on Twitter, like, oh my God, this Taliban ad is driving me crazy. And then somebody else, this bloody Yallacompare ad. Perfect, we win, right?
They remember it. It's important. There was this, Dollar Shave Club. Have you heard of Dollar Shave Club?
Yeah, of course,
yeah. So their first video, which like made them like get off the ground, I think it costed like $300. Super famous. Has like millions of views online. But same thing. It was the founder, and he was like running around, and doing the video. But sometimes that works.
Yeah, and look, one of our very early, kind of cornerstones of the business was keep it simple, right? And just get it done, and it doesn't have to be over-edited. It doesn't have to, I've had a lot of video editing agencies approach me wanting to charge me, upward of 100, 200,000 dirhams. I'm like really, we're good.
To sit you through the creative planning and then the storyboard.
Yeah, a lot of storyboards and good stuff. Yeah, so we actually there's another one that you shouldn't watch now, but later on I would urge you to watch the video we put together for Halloween, and it was nuts. And again, it was just get everyone to dress up. One take, we walked through it. It took 2 hours of editing with me and the guy, and that's it, man. And it's out the door, and it got loads of views. So I think you can spend a lot of money, and if you're going to put a big ad on Shakespeare Road, you should probably hire a professional, not me. But sometimes you can just kind of make it work on a shoestring, and it can have equal results, I think.
How do you differentiate in that throughout the different phases of your business between what you do in-house, what you do yourself, what you get others to do, or what you do in-house versus what you get someone else to do?
Yeah,
I think there's always dilemma as a startup founder, kind of make decisions on these things.
For me, I still haven't got the balance right of I'm still too hands-on in a lot of things. So for me, if someone said they wanted to be our SEO agency, there's no we're gonna do it. It's fine, right? And traditionally we haven't been great at taking external support, just because we really believe in the people we've hired, right? And we hire them because we think they can do a job. Now, obviously, if we're lacking in skills, then we'll take external support. And I think we're quite good at recognizing that. But traditionally, we've been hands-on, do it yourself, and I've been more hands-on. And particularly with marketing, that's my background. That's what I've done, since I was 18. So, I'm 36 now, sadly. So for me, I'm never going to want to export that. I'm never going to want somebody else to do marketing, right? Even design, we're building an office in Abu Dhabi at the moment, and it's going to be like an R&D hub. But the designer, I still want them with me. I still want them next to me. It's not the right attitude. It isn't. You should be able to work remotely, but I want that person, girl or guy, them with me. So we can, because creativity doesn't happen at 5 p.m. when you have that meeting booked, right? Creativity happens now. It's happening, right? Let's go. And I need to grab the team and we'll talk and we'll spit all ideas. And sometimes it works and more often it does work. So I like to have everyone around me. It was actually one of the hardest things I found about COVID and lockdown, was, you had a 9 a.m. catch-up meeting with the management team, and then there's another meeting at this time, and when you're live talking to someone and you've got an idea, you want to grab someone and pull them in, they want to call, they're doing something out. I found that really hard.
I don't know if that will ever work online. There's a few startups working on something. There's one called Tandem. I think they're doing it in a way where you can I don't know if you've seen it or not. I haven't actually played around with it, but you can kind of see your colleagues, and then you can just kind of grab them for a minute, like you do in real life. You don't need to schedule a Zoom call. And then you can see what they're actually working on, if they're viewing a certain doc or they're looking at different things. But yeah, like you said, I don't know. For me, I feel like a balance is good. I don't think I'd want to go back to work from an office every single day. And it seems that the majority of people, that's what they feel as well.
So where are you working at? You're from home?
Yeah, now, like, we've been working from home for a long time. Since, like, maybe 2-3 weeks ago, we started doing once a week from the office, like, everyone to come in. And then other days, if someone wants to go, they can go and work from the office. But if we go back to, like, after COVID, we probably just do, like, 2 days from the office. I mean, the advantage of that, so there's a few things. We have a remote team as well, like, working from Beirut. And then we've tried to hire people in other places. And when you have everyone in office, if you try to hire people in other remote offices, they're gonna feel left out.
Yeah. Totally.
So while the advantage of when you have everyone working remotely, no one feels left out. Everyone feels, even if you hire someone in like a market that you have no one in, they're gonna feel like everyone else. They're not gonna feel that they're disconnected from the team because the team is doing stuff together in the office and I'm sitting, I don't know. So there are some good things and bad things, but I feel, just on a personal, like, personally just doing like my job, I feel I enjoy like working from home many days. Before I didn't used to like it because there was always like this guilt or like just like feeling that, you're sitting at home, I need to be in the office because your whole team is in the office, or so you don't really stay at home.
Last week I had 2 days off. I booked 2 days. Imagine, wow. I did 1 day and I was in the office the next day, 7:30. Here we go. For me, I'm addicted to the office. I like this environment. I'm in my office right now. In fact, I could be home. Actually, the challenge I found during lockdown was I've got an 8-year-old daughter and she was being homeschooled and it was an absolute nightmare, She,
that's true.
Like me, doesn't want to be told, right? She wants to do her own thing. And she's more creative than sitting down. So that was a real challenge. My wife, she was the rock star in that situation. I'm afraid I failed at homeschooling. Thankfully, my wife is significantly better than me.
Yeah, I feel everyone with kids, like majority of people with kids have struggled with like all of that. They kind of like want to be back at the office, want their kids back in school or whatever. But though I don't have kids yet, so that's why I think it's different. It's definitely different experiences altogether. But overall, I think just the fact that it creates more flexibility while being productive, I feel that's also like interesting.
Yeah, look, the one thing I should say is whilst I prefer the face-to-face interaction, my team completely rocked it. Working from home, not a single person that I think, they're not working. I didn't have one doubt, I swear. And that was lovely. It was really cool because, I don't know, like, the size company we are, you always think like, well, if I'm not doing it, that's the wrong attitude. But if I'm not doing it, it's not happening. It's completely wrong. I've got a big management team and they're very capable and they tell me as much as I tell them how this is going to work. So the team nailed it. They were absolutely amazing and no complaints there. I just prefer that, touchy-feely, the thing that I like, that I really missed from Zooming everyone, that I really get back now with face-to-face management meetings is, the management meeting isn't just about sharing numbers and projections and project status. It's bonding as well, right? We have a laugh. My management meetings are crazy. They're really fun. And I like that. And I want the guys to enjoy that. Well, sometimes they're fun, sometimes they're tense. But, for the most part, we have a lot of fun. And, it'd be a shame. And I felt like, distance, it was much harder. But we, as a company, we're back. I think pretty much everyone is back now. But one of our biggest challenges actually was running the call center during COVID, right? So running a big call center from people's houses. And again, we were hitting record numbers. So they nailed it. I think, and I've thought about this quite a bit, but I think like, apart from the fact that the team, they knew, and I rallied the troops. I told them, guys, this is the time we need you most now. This isn't the time to be at home goofing off. This is the time where we got to fight together, right? We have to make this through, and we'll make it through together. Apart from that, I think like, that pride, people wanted to prove that I can work from home. Like, I don't need to be managed. I think there was a lot of that, so, which is good.
In general, many of the employees like enjoy that. I feel like people like you're saying, like I can be like responsible, get the job done. But for your customer support center, were they like all from home and
Yeah.
you had like a spike in demand?
Every single person in the call center worked from home. We had some scary moments because we had huge backlogs, people buying more policies than we've ever sold in a single day. And the backlog was scary, you know. So it was all hands on deck. But yeah, they nailed it. They did really well. No complaints at all. You know, and now we're even thinking about the future. What does the future of work look like? Do we have a big office? We've got a pretty big office, and we were talking about expanding. We're definitely not going to expand that office now. Like you were saying about remote working, we need to get better at it anyway, because we've got an office in Egypt. We're soon to have an office in Abu Dhabi. We're about to launch something in India. So we need to be good at remote work. And that was the thing that I think we struggled with when we opened the Egypt office, is how do we maintain this kind of fun atmosphere? Because
the culture,
yeah, because in Dubai, well, you know, you can have an outbreak of carnage, and it's in a good way. You know, it's a lot of fun. And how do you kind of send that over to Egypt? And actually, when we open our Abu Dhabi office, where we've asked from our Dubai office who would be interested in moving down, and actually quite a few are. And I'm really happy with that, because it means that all the new people that we hire in Abu Dhabi, they're going to be sitting side by side with people who've been with us for 1, 2, 3 years, 4 years. And, you know, the culture can move with those people down to Abu Dhabi, and we can maintain that.
That's smart. Yeah, that's a good idea, because that's a big challenge. Like when you're opening up different offices, what's the culture for you? What's Yallacompare's culture? How do you define a culture?
Yeah. Look, we have a lot of fun. We're all about execution, right? We understand that execution will make the difference between us and the competition. You know, when you consider that most of our products are commoditized products that lots of other people could sell, you know, for us, we know it's about execution and customer service, and these kind of threads we're always pulling back to, you know. So when it comes to customer care, we go over and above. I think, you know, if we make a mistake, the customer gets the policy for free. You don't want to advertise that, but to make 2,000 dirham to make a customer unhappy, no. The network effect of that, it's not worth it, right? So, yeah, like I say, it's for us, it's about execution. We understand that, you know, when people say knowledge is power, you know, I don't know if you've read that 12-week yearbook. You know, it's kind of a model that we follow. And in that book, he mentions that knowledge is power, but the example he gives is that everyone knows that you should work out more and you should eat less, but yet most people don't, right? So knowledge is power, but it's useless if you don't execute, if you don't plan. So for us, we run in 12-week cycles, and the idea is that you treat every 12 weeks like you would the last 12 weeks of the year. The last 12 weeks of the year is when you do your most sales, it's when you're most productive, because you're shitting yourself trying to get everything done before the end of the year. Well, that end of year comes round every 12 weeks for us, right? So we like that. Luckily, we'd really doubled down on that kind of methodology a couple of weeks before lockdown. We didn't know lockdown was coming, but we
interesting.
We doubled down. We hired a really good project guy, planning and strategy guy who kind of owns that, and the timing couldn't have been any better. I wish I'd had inside information and planned it. I didn't. It just really lucky. So
you told me when we spoke last week about, you know, like people not having emotional attachment to things that they do, like in case, you know, many times you go into things and then, you know, if you feel that they're not working, you just pull the plug immediately. But that's quite difficult for people. Do you feel that's like your culture, more your approach, or is that more across the company that people have adopted it? Does your own like way of doing things end up being your culture as well as a founder? I don't know.
I think so. So to explain the way I work is, when I think about the next 6 months, 12 months, I think about the objectives, and ultimately the objective is sell more, you know, grow X, Y, Z, get more margin, whatever it is for every company, right? But let's just say it's sell more. That's the objective. right? But what can trick people, I think, is that they think that if they launch a project, build a new product, let's say, right? They think that's the objective. The objective is to finish the project. It's not. The project, the thing that you're building, is a tactic to get to your objective. So for me, I'm not emotional about the project, the tactic. All I care about is, do we get to where we need to be at the end of the day, right? So for me, it's never a straight line. As a startup founder, it's never a straight line. You're always zigging, zagging, and it's the key though is, do you get to where you need to be, right? So and I warn people when I interview them that this is how we work, right? That sometimes we might be 4 months into a project, and of course you start a project with the best intentions. You think you've done all the kind of research that you needed to do, and actually 6 months in, 3 months in, whatever it is, new information comes up. You find out that actually the market isn't ready. You find out that the regulator in that market won't allow it. You find out something that means that project is now not going to help you get to your objective. It isn't now going to be viable. For me, no emotions there, completely cold. Kill it. Immediately, we move on to the next thing. Now, I think some people find that really hard. It's wrenching, right? To commit yourself to a project and then the boss, the big bad boss, says, we're stopping that now. Now, as best as you can, you try and get them to get to that decision themselves, right? Through a series of meetings. But sometimes you just have to say, it's not going to work, and we move on, and it's okay. Now,
how do you deal with it, though? Like, from a staff point of view, like someone might get demotivated. I've been working on this for you, and like also me as a fan. Like, we see it as, okay, the objective is like more, where to get the company and so on. It's not just a project, but for someone who's, I don't know, in a specific role, for them, that project is a lot. Maybe it's like their first project if they're like a fresh grad, or, it might be a very important project in their career that they're looking at, and then they're seeing it getting whatever. So my question is, how do you deal with that, like emotional? Like, I understand what you're saying in terms of, and I agree with that. And probably it's difficult for you even to not be emotionally attached to your product and the project. But how do you get others to feel like in the same way, and kind of like get over it, if it's a certain project?
Yeah, so look, the first step is, again, I warn people from day one that this might happen, and you hire a certain attitude and a certain, but it doesn't stop, right? Inevitably people will become attached to that project, and they want to see that happen. This is what they've spent evenings and weekends on, and they've pushed really hard for it. But ultimately, it comes down to this simple conversation, right? Where we go over the idea that the project isn't the objective. The objective is we need to grow the revenue. And if we launch this project, it's not going to move us any closer to our objective. So, it is just having about honest conversations. And, I guess I'd have to ask HR if this really has lasted impact on people. I don't think it does. I think, because most people in our company, probably like a lot of smaller startups, they're juggling 10 projects anyway. They probably love to offload a project or two, So, the key thing though is, as a business, we are trying to make those decisions to kill something as quickly as we can, and we're building it as cheaply as we can, right? So even if we've spent 6 months in calendar months working on something, the cost to us is absolutely minimal, because the guy or girl running that project is running 2 or 3 other things. So it's 20%, 30% of their time, right? So it's pretty inexpensive as it goes. The tech, that's where it gets really painful, actually, is because, you've only got so many engineers in your team. They've only got so many hours in a day. That's where this, I think now we're getting much better as a team, as an organization, at evaluating something and being really brutal. So we have very regular sessions where it's like prioritization. It's like, okay, we love this project. We still love it. However, if you want to launch these 2 other things, which are really quick wins and they will have an impact, we got to bump this. And actually, the last 12 months have been really hard for bumping things, right? Because we've launched huge projects, huge partnerships with Etisalat, VFS, the visa registration guys, ADIB, RTA. These projects, they were vortex. They sucked all of our teams in, right? So So then you kind of come up with a bit of a tech debt, right? You're almost not working on you leave maintenance behind, you leave general basic updates to your own website behind because you get sucked into these huge projects. But now we're being a bit more aggressive and a bit more selfish, I suppose, wanting to make sure that we spend our time doing things that will improve our business, so.
And how do you now and before, how do you set priorities in terms of features or things that you need to build and differentiate that between what you think as a founder is needed for the product now versus what your customers are asking for? I think that's one of the most challenging things, especially when building a tech product is you're always building. There's so much to build and there's so many features and different things to add. But what's worked for you? Is it trial and error? Is it, what you believe that, that needs to be there or what customers are asking for, specifically on the product and on the tech?
Probably like a lot of expats in the region, often I've got sucked into the idea that my idea, the idea I've seen in other markets, that's the idea, right? That will work. Forget that. It like very rarely does something export into this market. And actually, I always say to people outside of this region, maybe I'm speaking to new investors or just regular Joes that I speak to, I always say that actually what we built with Yallacompare, it's not reinventing any wheel. That there's no skill necessarily. It's almost copy-paste to what they would do in the UK. The skill, though, the real skill is that we've regionalized it, right? We didn't just take Compare, launch it in Dubai. It wouldn't work. And actually, their model is quite different. The localization, that's the trick, right? And, that can be as simple as having a call center. In the UK, you'd never have a call center. Why would you bother, right? It's the last thing you need. Here, though, they want it, right? To get back to your question around how do we decide certain projects, for us, it always comes back to, is it going to grow our revenue? Is it going to improve our margin? Is it going to help our customers? So is it going to differentiate us from the competition? So those three pillars, if something doesn't really help one of those three things, you got to really question it, right? So it's something that we talk about in management meetings, making sure that those three things are front and center, that the 12-week goal for the next 12 weeks, that we remember what we're trying to achieve in those 12 weeks and what we're working on. Does it really impact that? So it makes it a far less emotional meeting when you can just refer back to these things. I mean, margin for us now is so important, right? We have to become more sustainable, as does every startup.
Are you profitable now?
No, so we're not at the moment. We were getting really close, actually, just before COVID. We raised money. Obviously, we're more focused on growth again now. But I think, it's not going to be like the old days. Raise money, blast it all on hyper growth. We're not interested in that. We'd love some hyper growth if we could get it for free, but more now. The first thing we did, actually, when we raised, as I said, we looked into how we could save. The second thing we did is we looked internally very critically, and we said, where's our skill set? Where are we? We ranked ourselves for data utilization, right? So how good are we at utilizing the data that we have? How good is our tech for what our customer needs and versus the competition and versus where we would love to be, aspirationally, where we would want our tech to be. And actually, to be honest, when we looked internally, we were all disappointed with where we were, which is cool, right? Because, on one hand, we just raised money, so we've impressed someone, and we haven't just impressed anyone. We've impressed an industry heavyweight, someone that we would love to have on board. So we've impressed them, but we're not happy. We're not with the goal. We're not there, right? So now, before we really start to dig into that lovely war chest that we've just acquired, we want to make sure that we're ready to make best use of it. So again, if we can capture a customer, if we can bring them in, if we can show them a product and a service that they like, then hopefully they're gonna want to come back, and it makes it cheaper to acquire the next customer, and so on and so on. So that's kind of the goal. I think one of the first things that occurred to us is that we were almost mono product. We were almost just car insurance. which is a once a year product, unless you're lucky enough to be able to buy a car every couple of months or twice a year or whatever it is, where you have more than one car. But for the average customer that we were speaking to, we got to speak to you once a year, which is not enough, right? It's really hard to stay front of mind when we don't see you for 12 months. So now we've started to launch more and more products so that we can be in your home and we can help you in more stages of your life, right? Whether that's home insurance, watch insurance, or any other kind of insurance. And insurance, sorry, go on.
A little bit off topic, but what do you think of Tesla's car insurance approach? Since like car insurance is pretty big for you guys.
I mean, it's really smart. I expect more and more people to do it. I think it's some way from threatening our business, I would think, purely on the basis that whether Tesla like it or not, and I am one of the saddos that put a deposit down for the Cybertruck. I'm one of them. Me
too. It was $100, but might as well.
Have you ever had a single update from them? No. But anyway,
I never thought I'd buy a truck in my life. Like I always hated trucks until I saw that one truck.
That truck is cool. I need that.
It is. It's amazing.
What for me is I ride motocross in the desert, and there was one ad or video where they drove an ATV up the back, and I'm like, done.
Yeah.
I mean, but I think for the most part, it's a very expensive acquisition, right? And if I think back to my hometown in Wales, it's probably generations away from Tesla being affordable, right? Really now, that's not coming anytime soon, right? Whether they banned fossil fuels forever, Teslas aren't going to be affordable in my hometown in Wales. If I think about the average person in the Middle East, a $50,000 Tesla, that's not happening anytime soon, right? So, but I agree with the idea that they're able to track the way that you drive, the way that you brake, the way that you accelerate, the way that and the amount of times that you use that car, right? I mean, imagine during COVID, people weren't driving their cars, and yet car insurance is the same cost. It's not right. Yeah. It's something
because you can't collect insurance. Most insurance providers can't collect real-time insurance on their users, so you don't know what's going on. I mean, the only thing you can know is what car they're driving, what color, try to make some analysis based on historical data, but that's where it stops. While what's interesting about, Tesla's insurance model is because they're the only car that's connected. So they can not only see how fast you're driving, they can know what song you're listening to while you're driving and what speed and which street. It is scary, but as a user, if it can bring your insurance costs down, because I mean here we don't pay a lot for insurance, probably what is it like?
It's around 2%
to 100. Yeah, it's pretty minimal. But in the US, while you're paying $500, if you have a fancy car, you're gonna pay $1,000+ a month, not a year, a month. That's a lot of money,
In the UK. Insurance, if you were going to buy a new car, particularly when you're young, when you're in your 20s, the first thing you'd have to do is work out, can I even afford the insurance? I remember my first car, the excess was double or triple the price of the car, right? That's how aggressive it is. And actually, you're trained in the UK, you're trained very early on, never crash, never claim, you will be ruined for the next 5 years or 3 years, whatever it is. So so whilst Tesla has that built in, there is obviously the option in other markets, which would be telematics. The problem that we would traditionally see with telematics is that only the best drivers opt in. So it doesn't really serve the purpose that insurers would want it to. They don't really get to find out about the bad drivers. So we definitely see, actually, this kind of pay as you go is something that we're looking into. Apart from other insurances, COVID made us look at how we can support people better. And when we see the number of cars that weren't on the road, it's kind of getting back to normal now, right? But when you see the cars that weren't on the road during the last few months, you realize that something's got to change. So hopefully we'll tackle that and a bunch of other things in the near future.
Nice. And so right now, where are you in your fundraising? Which you did your Series B. Was that your Series B, the last one?
Yeah, we're still B. We've got one more part to that, which I was really hoping we'd have had wrapped up by this chat, but I think that'll get signed in the next few days, and I think that'll be Series B wrapped up then. So Series B for us it'll turn out, with this extra little bit that comes, it'll turn out to be around $15 million raised in Series B, and a total of 19 million raised since we started. So
next year will be like 10 years since you've started Yallacompare, yeah?
Yeah, which is crazy, you know, when I think back. And you know what's really funny? I love telling people this. I told Fadi Gandor this as well. Or maybe I told Faris. But I remember telling my wife, you know, I want to raise money and da-da-da. And she's like, oh, I've heard about this guy, Fadi Gandor. And I'm like, come on, he's never going to invest in us. Forget that, you know. And they were part of our Series A, which was really cool because of course, still is today. And in those early days, Fadi was a superstar and is a superstar, right? And he was the ticket you wanted, you know. And I love the Fadi knows my name. I still love that. I still geek out about that. And I still love the idea that it seemed unattainable that the great Fadi Gandor would invest in our tiny business. So yeah, you know, it's been a crazy 10 years. You know, a wild ride, loads of ups, loads of downs. The fact that I have co-founders makes it bearable and makes it significantly easier. And for any debate or argument that you might have, you have 20, 30, 40 times more good times and 40 times more reasons why you appreciate them, you know. So I remember actually when we closed the Kipco deal, Jonathan phoned me, the deal is signed, right? And this is at a time where, can we survive? You're literally having those conversations, right? Are we going to survive for the rest of the year even? Jonathan phones me, the deal is signed. I phoned Sam, someone who I've known since 2011, who we've been in business building this since 2011. I could barely speak for 30 seconds, you know, like I was so cut up, and it was months of like nervousness and pain, and you know,
it's massive like highs and like deep lows, you know, like
within a day you start the day, you're going to be a billionaire. Then midway through the day, we're going to be shut down tomorrow. And then, you know, like we have this wild ride. And actually, talking about that wild ride, we closed Kipco money. We announced it to the public. We're rock stars. We're amazing. The very next day, the insurance regulator here in Dubai says 6 months, every aggregator needs to be regulated. Holy shit. Like, now what are we going to do? Like, panic. Now, it's fine. We're acquiring a broker, we're going to be fine. But we're only going to be fine because we raised money, because now we've got the money to acquire a broker, to become regulated. But, you know, like you're at the top of that mountain for seconds, and then you're going to get ripped right back down again, you know. It's like snakes and ladders, basically. So, but yeah.
It's a big wild ride for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. It was great having you. We're running out of time, but this has been amazing.
It's been good.
Thanks for coming on.
Oh, thank you.
Great having you.
We didn't speak about your beverage. You spoke about Maté.
Oh, yeah. Maté. That's it. I'm drinking it right here.
What is it?
Well, it's probably cold by now. It's usually drank warm. So Maté is a South American, mainly Argentina, Paraguay, Uruguay, and south of Brazil. That's where it's from originally. It's like tea, but it has more caffeine in it, and it's like an antioxidant. So I started drinking that. Yeah, I was drinking coffee before, but you know, it's more as coffee is very acidic. It can be like so. This is better, and I switched to that. And this is, you know, famous in certain parts, like the mountain parts of Lebanon, like Syria and some part. It was brought here in some way from South America. I don't know how. So yeah, that's the name for the series, and that's the drink here. Next time when COVID is over, we can do this again, like, and you can be here in the studio with me, and we can drink it together.
I'd love that. I'm ready for it. Can you buy it here in Dubai?
Yeah, you can. They sell it in some places. I mean, it's very, like, if you've seen, probably, like, you'll see pictures of like Messi or like other, you know, big football players from South America drinking that like right before the game. I mean, in Argentina, it's like religious. Like every day they drink it everywhere, you know?
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I love it. For sure. Good talking to you.
All right, mate. Great to speak to you. Congrats again on the day and good luck for the next few, yeah?
Thank you for listening to this episode. If you like this podcast and want to listen to more episodes, subscribe to the Maté Conversations podcast on one of your favorite podcast channels.